Okay, we are recording this session so that we can share it with some people who weren't able to be here before. We are here for the resume roundup here with CNS, Career and Professional Development Center. My name is Erin Cherwadi. I do want this to be interactive, so feel free to jump in at any point if you have questions or want some clarification. This is not meant to be a complete start from scratch resume workshop, just we have plenty of resources on our CNS Career Center website and would be happy to meet with you one-on-one about resume, your own resume, but this is meant for some quick tips and tricks to help you get through this pandemic in the summer and just to keep going with your career. All right. So, okay. All right, I first want to mention that we have a lot of great career resources available for our students. If you go to our CNS Career Center webpage, which is just cns.umass.edu/careers, you can sign up for one-on-one advising appointments, which right now we are doing via Zoom. We also have a link to our CNS Career Handbook, which is a fantastic resource. I'll show a picture of that in a second. In normal times, we do have paper copies to hand out. Right now, it's also available online. The Big Interview is a great resource if you're interested in practicing for upcoming job or grad school or internship interviews. We also have an internship database where your fellow classmates from previous summers have posted internships that they have gotten, and that way you can also use that in your own internship search. It also has links to our workshops such as this one and Handshake, which, as you know, is where you can sign up for events, look for jobs and internships, and make appointments with advisors. I mentioned our career development handbook. This is a great resource for you to keep long-term. It is in a PDF form on our website. It has a lot of great detailed information about resumes, cover letters, jobs, networking, how to get into research labs, and information such as that. So I encourage you to take a look. So where are we right now? As you all know, we are in the midst of a pandemic, and that has really thrown a huge wrench into our our lives right now. And obviously the safety issue is the most important thing, but we know that it has really affected students' jobs and internships. The vast majority of students weren't able to get internships this summer, and many of our students who did have jobs, unfortunately, those were put on hold. But I wanted to share a quote from one of our employers that reached out to the director of our Career Center this spring, who said, they understand that students were not able to get jobs and internships this year. Opportunities just aren't there right now. We are seeing things open up and they will be coming back. The important thing is just to show that you did something this summer to stay on top of your knowledge, learn some skills. I mean, basically that you didn't just sit on the couch and play Netflix all summer, right? Or watch Netflix all summer. So take this as an opportunity to demonstrate your resourcefulness. Things that you can do: take a class online, learn a foreign language using some free apps, do research work, work on personal projects, work for a family business, do childcare, something, volunteer remotely even. Just take this opportunity to show that you did something this summer to better yourself. All right, and now our resume tips. Tip number one, know your audience. So we know that when you are looking to get a job, you obviously start off with your resume. The goal of your resume, though, is to get you an interview. It's not going to get you a job. Chances are you will not be able to get a job based just on your resume. They want to meet you. They want to find out what your skills are, how you can contribute to the company. So it's really important to personalize your resume to the field or industry to which you are applying. For example, you're going to write a different resume if your goal is to get into do lab research versus if you want to go into the teaching field. If you want to get into a lab, you're going to focus more on your lab skills and your classroom lab experience versus if you were a tutor or a TA. So if you think about it, think of the number of grads from UMass alone, expand that to the rest of the state, the rest of the country. Your resume, there are lots of people looking for jobs, and that's not to you. There are also a lot of jobs available. The important part is, though, that your resume needs to be so compelling and interesting that they want to meet you in person. So you need to be descriptive within your content. You need to showcase your skills, and you need to know who you're directing this resume to. Tip number 2, we have found, oh, this is not moving, hold on. Hold on, I'm trying to move this for a second. Okay, tip number 2. If you did have an internship or job that you unfortunately were unable to have because of COVID, you can actually put that temporarily on your resume as you are trying to find your next role. Now, this is something that once you do get your next role and you accept it when you're hired full-time, if you have just graduated, or if you do get your next internship, then you're going to remove it or replace it. But for now, you earned this role, right? So what you learn from an internship, as we know, is the most important part, those skills. However, you earned that offer, and it's important for a potential employer to know that you were offered an internship even though the position was rescinded due to COVID-19. So this is an example of how you could put that on your resume. It shows that you had the initiative to seek out an internship. It shows that you kind of passed that application process and did earn that internship. And, you know, it also helps explain that gap in that internship experience that so many people have this summer due to COVID-19. So it's a critical event that you can tell in your, your story. One thing to keep in mind is that if you want to make sure you're only putting this on your resume, if you have an actual official job or internship offer that someone from that company could verify that offer and that they had to cancel it in case a future employer that sees this on your resume wants to confirm it or verify that you were offered this position. So again, you can include your canceled internship this summer on your resume until you get your next position because you did earn that. And that's something to show future employers that you had a plan, you took the initiative to get something this summer, it just didn't work out because as we all know, COVID took over. I also want to stop here and just mention if you have any questions or comments, feel free to unmute yourself, go ahead and ask or put it into the chat box and I'm happy to answer those as those questions come in. You also have the opportunity to work this canceled internship into a future cover letter or in response to an interview question. These are things that you can, again, you earned this, you passed that application process, and it is something that you deserve to have acknowledged. Okay, another thing to point out, make sure it doesn't sound like the organization did anything wrong by canceling your internship. It's just kind of a state of how we are today in this life. All right, again, any questions, feel free to jump in. Next, when you are writing your resume, you want to make sure that you are not using paragraph form. Occasionally when I review resumes, I see paragraphs under each of the job descriptions. Those paragraphs are fine when you're putting something into LinkedIn or, as you're talking about it in your cover letter, but when you are writing a resume, you want to use quick, short bullet points that describe your actions and what you did. Sometimes recruiters have 100 resumes to go through in an hour or two. You want to make sure that when they pick up your resume really quickly, or when they pick up your resume, it's easy for them to skim in 30 seconds to a minute and get a sense of your experiences and accomplishments within each position. So it's what we call the 30-second skim, and you need to optimize your resume for that. So short, quick bullet points are key to make it readable and also for them to see that those skills that you did. But thick paragraphs are just harder to read quickly. And if you have the bullets, they can quickly see those terms. Like in this case, you monitored activities, you assisted students, you provided aid, you inspected lab books. So it tells them the skills and the value that you added to that job. So you want to definitely use bullet points, not paragraphs in your resume. Tip 4, start with an action verb. A lot of times when I see resumes, I see things that really students just pull, and not just students, alums as well, but people just pull straight from the job description where it says responsibilities include or duties include. And the problem with doing that is it doesn't say that you actually did the job. It says that you were supposed to do the job. And we have all been in group projects, I assume, I know I have been, where one person of the team was responsible for something. They didn't do it and everyone else picked up the slack because they wanted to get a good grade. And I'm not saying by any means that this is anything that one of you would have done, What I'm saying is if you say duties included or responsibilities included, again, it doesn't say you did it, and you want the employer who is reading your resume to think of you as actually doing this work and to visualize you doing that work. So instead, just drop that phrase, duties included or responsibilities included, and say what you did. So instead of that phrase up above, I made 3 bullets out of that. As a research assistant, what did you do? Collected and analyzed data, wrote detailed lab reports, performed general lab duties. That shows the employer that you actually did that work versus that you were supposed to do that work. Okay, any questions? I'm just checking, no questions so far, great. Okay, along with that, sometimes it's hard to find those action verbs or those phrases, those little bullets right here. Sometimes I see the same ones, each bullet, responsible for, or handled, or wrote, or did, you know, repetitive. You want to make sure you vary each of the action words that you use in the in your resume. So we have on our career development handbook that I mentioned earlier, and I will put the link in the chat box at the end, 500 science resume action verbs. So this is a great resource because I still use this sometimes when I'm reviewing resumes. If you're trying to find the right word that said what you did without being repetitive, it's a great resource to find ways to help the employer visualize you doing that. Tip 5, explain why you did something. So when you're writing the bullets, you want to actually absolutely say what you did. So this is a great description of being a teaching assistant for a Psych 100 course. Demonstrated your knowledge of foundational psychology, held weekly office hours, followed confidentiality regulations, but you can make this even stronger by saying why you did this or the value that you added to an employer. What did you learn? What did you do? So one example of doing that is explaining why. So this is the black ink here is the exact same phrase as we had before. And in the red, I improved each of these to say why you did it and what was the skill you learned. So demonstrated knowledge of foundational psychology. Why? To improve the student understanding of course material. That shows the employer the value that you added in a previous position. Think of the bullet that you write as 30%, and this is just kind of rough, you know, obviously do what's better for you. I like to think of them as 30% of what you did, like you demonstrated that knowledge, and the other 70% of each phrase, why you did it, what resulted, what was the value you added to the employer, and what did you accomplish. So by you're still making these quick and succinct. They should only be, obviously this is maximized for the screen, but normally your bullet will only take 1 line of your resume. And so you still want it to be concise, but you want it to say the value and what you did. All right, and tip 6, quite often I have students who want to go into research, want to work in labs or work in biotech, and I hear, but I don't have any experience. How am I going to get that experience? One way that you can show that experience is use your lab classes. Show an employer that maybe you haven't had paid or credited research experience, but you have learned the needed lab skills. You've demonstrated by your grades that you can do these lab skills. And even though you haven't had that opportunity to get paid for it or to do it in a credited position, you know how to do that. So these are a couple examples that we use. These are also in the sample resumes in our career development handbook online at cns.umass.edu/careers. But these are some examples you can see. The first one's a little more detailed about you're clearly stating that you were a student. It was introductory biology lab. And there's different phrasing here because I want to show there's different ways to format your resume, and both of these are correct. It's just different how these certain resumes were set up. So you're talking about what you did. You used micropipetters, slides, and microscoped, collaborated with a group of 3 other students. That shows teamwork. That shows such an important skill to have. And why did they do that? To complete experiments and record data. Applying the knowledge from the classroom to write reports. These are all skills that are really important if you're trying to get an introductory research position, if you're trying to get into a lab with a faculty member. These are skills to have, and you can use your lab classes. If you're not sure how to do that, make an appointment with one of us and we can help you personalize your own based on whatever lab courses that you took. Okay, tip 7, be consistent. quite often in resumes, I'll see different size fonts, I'll see different bolding. Sometimes one job description will start with the name of the job and then, sorry, the name of the company and then what you did, whereas the next one will start with the job title and then the name of the company. Really important to keep everything consistent. It shows that that it's very clean and easy to read. Keep your headings the same throughout the resume. Check your spelling. So often I find words that are correct in they're correct in spell check, but they don't fit what's there. So you want to make sure, get a second opinion, have someone else take a look at it, even if it passes spell check. Check your verb tenses. If you have already completed that job or that internship or that course, make sure you switch that verb tense to past tense and so they know that you aren't doing that anymore. Second thing too, keep it to one page. It's not a hard and fast rule, but we generally recommend that. When we talk to recruiters, they are 50-50 on whether they actually flip to the second page when we ask them. So again, it's not a rule, but if you happen to have a recruiter who's reading resumes that is only going through the first page of everything, you run the risk they miss everything on your second page. So put everything, keep it safe, put everything on the first page, keep your font size between 10 and 12. If you're having trouble getting it to one page, again, contact one of us and we're happy to work with you over Zoom and email to look at your resume, but definitely stick to one page. There are a couple exceptions. If you are applying to grad school and they need what's called a CV, or you have a lot of research experience, you know, or once you're 10, 15 years out of college, then yeah, you'll probably have a 2-page resume. But for now, at the level that you all are as UMass students, you should have one page on your resume. Also, by the time you're juniors, we suggest you take off your high school information. It's really not necessary anymore unless you have something really, really extraordinary. You won a national award, you went to an international baccalaureate school, or you have a, or you studied abroad, something that is above what most people have. In general, we keep your high school off. But again, that's something we can help you personalize. Right, I'm a little bit over, just about 2 more minutes here. 2 more tips here we have. Tip 8 is applicant tracking systems. Some of you may not have heard of these, but applicant tracking systems are larger with Fortune 500 companies. So not necessarily biotech, small research companies, but some larger hospitals use them as well. What they are automated scanners that filter resumes that are submitted online so that recruiters can put in key terms they're looking for, key characteristics of the applicants. So instead of having 500 resumes to go through, they may only have 80 resumes to go through. And this can be a good thing. Make sure when this is one of the reasons we have you personalize it to each industry so that you can put those key terms in. Make sure your laboratory skills are there. Make sure you use the word University of Massachusetts, your graduation year, your Bachelor of Science, that is, even if it's pending, that you are getting that degree. Any key terms you can put in. You want to make sure when you are, just in case you're submitting online, that you avoid putting your contact information in the header. Always have it in the body of your Word document, even if it's Google Doc. If you put it in the header, you run the risk the ATS systems will not read it. And that way they won't know who you are. Also, if you're using columns, ATS systems can't usually read those columns. And I have this sample listed to show you. For example, what it will do is it reads left to right. It cannot understand those lines in 99% of the time. So in this case, with the Mira Carlson resume, it will say, it'll read your resume as contact profile, then the phone number, and then that's kind of gibberish, but it will read left to right. It cannot compute that those are columns. So really important. Those fancy templates that you may see are fine for handing out at a career fair. Although I will say some of the employers that come to the career fairs now actually have iPads and they scan resumes right into their iPads. So it's probably better to not do that in general, but really start with a Word document or a blank Google Doc when you are writing your resume. We have samples on our Career Center website, as I mentioned, that are great and simple. These look really fancy, but if you are trying to apply online and you're getting filtered out, you run the risk that it will hurt you in the long run. Tip 9, network, network, network. 80% of new hires say that networking played a part in their application process, whether someone told them about a job or someone recommended them for a job or someone connected them to someone who knew someone else within a job. Really important to try to make those connections. We have a whole section in our career development handbook, I think it's page 40, but I'm not 100% sure, that talks about how to network, how to get started. It can be intimidating, it can feel awkward, but the more you start and the more you do, the easier it will get in the long term. You can look on LinkedIn. You can use Connect UMass, which is a new website that the Alumni Association at UMass has done to connect alums and current students. We have some guides on how to set up your LinkedIn profile and also how to connect with alums and find alums. Ask your parents if they know someone at a certain company. Ask your parents' friends. Ask your friends' parents. Referrals now make up 40% of all hires, right? That's a big number. It's kind of a scary number if you don't know anyone. So by using that networking and reaching out to people, it makes it much more manageable. You never know who's going to say, oh, wait, you're looking at something at MGH? I actually know someone who works in one of the labs there. Let me see if I can find their number and I'll text them and see, if they know anything about the position. They may not. But either way, it's one more person you know in the industry and in the field that can be a connection for you. There's also what we call the hidden job market, quote unquote. And what that means is sometimes jobs aren't advertised or posted online. They are actually just found, kind of through backdoor channels. So, an employer may say, well, I can put it up on LinkedIn or I can put it up on Indeed.com or Handshake, but it'll be quicker if I ask my employees if they know anyone. So they may be trying to save money on advertising. They may trust their employees to say, hey, I know this person is a great employee. I assume that their friends and classmates are good employees as well. They're trustworthy. Also, some employees get referral bonuses too. So they're often very eager to pass on the word when there are jobs available. So just keep in mind, again, network, network, network. You never know who's going to know someone in a company. Very last tip before I end our resume roundup, follow up. Once you do submit that resume, don't just sit around, twiddle your thumbs and wait for a response. Quite often, they will get hundreds of applicants for a single job. And if you call or email HR a week or two later, you don't want to do it the next day. Give them a little bit of time and just reiterate your interest. Just say, hi, my name is Erin. I'm very interested in this position. I actually applied back on the 27th. I'm wondering if you can share your time frame for when you're going to move forward with the hiring process. At the worst, they will say, sorry, we already hired someone, or you're not in the running. Disappointing, but at least then you can move on to the next one. You'll know. So you don't want to be pushy. Just send one email or one call, but it helps to check in, and it may also be the push they need to go through that stack of 100 resumes and pull yours out and say, wow, I didn't see Erin's before, but she might actually be really good. I'm going to put her on the interview list. So follow up with the recruiter, continue to research the company and see if you can find any connections on LinkedIn or through the Alumni Association. It can only help you. All right, so we are all set with our resume tips and tricks. I encourage you, actually the slide is off because right now obviously we do not have resume help as a walk-in, but we have our handbook online. All of the advisors are still seeing students via Zoom this summer. We welcome appointments from you all. You can feel free to shoot me an email if you have any questions. My email address is right here on the slide, and I'm happy to talk to any and all of you. But if you have any questions, again, reach out to us. Thank you for attending our CNS Resume Roundup. And I will stay online for a few minutes. If you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself and open your video or just put notes in the chat. Thank you. Oh, I see Wyatt's question now. For grad school, they asked for a CV. What is different? So when you are, there's a few questions here, sorry. So when you ask for a CV, Wyatt, a CV is essentially for a current student, essentially a CV is the same thing as a resume. There is actually something on our CNS website, our Career Center website, that has a link to CV guidelines. But essentially, basically, when they use the term CV, you're going to put a lot more detail. So you don't need to be one page. You can be more detailed if you have research experience, if you have papers that you had published, or extensive papers you wrote for classes you want to focus on, poster presentations. That is what you want to put in there. So I will send you, I'm actually going to paste you a link really quick in here for our guide, really quick, Wyatt. And then, let me show you that really quick, guys. Hold on one sec. So actually, I'm going to share my screen here again, but instead of the PowerPoint, I'm going to share our CNS website. So this is our CNS Career Center website. It's just like I said, cns.edu, sorry, cns.umass.edu/careers. I'm actually going to type in the long version of it here. And if you go to this page, if you scroll down, this is where our it's a really long website. This is where our career development handbook is. But further down, Wyatt, there is a link of how to write a CV and see examples for grad school, and see an example of a UMass CV. So these are some good resources for you there. Let's see, how to make an appointment for resume check. If you can make an appointment using Handshake. It's umass.joinhandshake.com. There's also this link here on our main webpage, and you can make an appointment there. You'll just have to fill out your UMass information. They do ask you to fill out a whole profile. You can skip that if you want. You don't have to do that. You can just go straight up to where it says Career Center, and it'll show you the advisors that are available for an appointment, including myself. And there are a few of us that are there. Edita asked, how can we put our contact info in the body while keeping it neat? I'm going to show you some examples in here. This is again, I'm scrolling quickly through this. I'm going through our sample resumes. There are some. So you don't have to take up a lot of space to put it in the body of your resume. Really, you don't. In fact, a lot of times, obviously this is the header. Just keep it short. Just take it 1 or 2 lines. You can combine things here. The phone number is on the same line as the email address. I've seen a lot of people too that no longer have their street address. You can just put your city and state on there. And this is another example. This is still not in the header. This is in the body of the resume. And you can see here, she has her name, and then also just has all the contact information on the second line. So it doesn't take a lot of space, but it is a little neater there. And also, if you're still in a position, should you use present tense? Yes. Even though everything else is in past tense, absolutely. So if you see this example resume here that's on my screen, whoops, make it bigger. You can see this is someone who's a natural resource conservation major. They are currently a team member. This is a little dated, obviously, so it's fast. They're currently a team member of the environmental committee, so they have current tense, plan events, campaign door-to-door, schedule events. Everything else in here is in the past. Conducted research, participated, created. It doesn't look strange. It's just, it actually makes sense to recruiters who are used to reading resumes. They want to know what you're currently doing versus what you have done in the past. Next question. Okay, I think I got all the questions. Anyone else have questions here? Okay. All right, thank you all for coming. If you have any other questions, I will put my email address back up as I'm gonna share my screen one more time here. I thought I had shared, okay. There we go. Okay, so if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to me via email or anything else. Otherwise, have a great day. Thank you all.